get lines.
Or they get a detention.
Well, that'll really stop the Yob Society.
Everyone complains there's no discipline in class, but teachers are not allowed to impose it. How much better school life would be if teachers were free to give troublemakers a short, sharp shock.
I have had enough of you two.
Truancy and disruption would soon drop if children knew they would be caned when caught. I'm not suggesting uncontrolled violence. School heads must monitor and approve caning to prevent any abuse.
I give my wings to go your way.
Children need authority and a framework to respect. If we don't learn respect and discipline at school, we'll probably never learn it. Our parents and grandparents learned discipline at school. The threat of physical punishment doesn't seem to have done them much harm. The politicians say we've got a Yob society, but young people don't want it any more than adults do. We'd like better discipline from teachers, not afraid to tackle the toughs.
Right, thanks Wesley. I now call upon Helena Davis to oppose the motion. Helena.
Fellow MPPs, violence is not used in society as a whole to maintain order. Why should it be used against children? Corporal punishment only creates resentment and fear, abolishes all respect and allows young people to believe that violence is acceptable. Corporal punishment is easily abused and is extremely difficult to control. Most importantly of all, corporal punishment is extremely difficult and is not effective. If you came upon this scene in the park, you'd call the police because you'd know that you were witnessing a serious assault.
I hope this teaches you a lesson, boy.
But this is what supporters of this motion want legalised: the beating of a weaker person by a stronger. In the playground, that's called bullying, and we all know what fear that brings to a school.
Do you want beating you?
You can't control bullies by bullying them back. After all, you don't fight fire with fire, you fight it with water. Fellow MPPs, we're taught that deliberately hurting a weaker creature is cruel. If we wouldn't beat an animal, we should definitely not beat a child.
I would hate to see my own children being beaten or caned in school, and therefore I would find it unacceptable to be part of a system which used it myself as a teacher. I myself had a ruler when I was 5, which I hated, and was very upset by the experience.
Good morning, Year 10.
If adults can't control children without inflicting violence and humiliation, then perhaps they are at fault, not the children.
I believe that school is one place where discipline can be taught without violence, without resorting to bullying, and that there has to be a sharing of ideas and a willingness to learn, and in that way the child will leave school, I hope, a happy child.
Violence breeds violence. Beaten children become beating parents in a pattern that we should break, not strengthen. Corporal punishment is both brutal and ineffective. When smacking doesn't work, the slipper is brought in, and when that doesn't work, it's the belt, flex or cane. Fellow MPPs, our law says that people can't just assault each other. Why should children be the only citizens excluded from the protection of that law? If roles were reversed, what adult would submit to barbaric treatment like this? Strike a blow for civilization and vote that beating people is wrong.
Right, thanks, Helena. Now it's time to put questions, first of all, to the proposer, to Wesley. Do I see any questions for Wesley?
Hey, Jackson, don't you think that school is a time in your life that you should enjoy, and not a time that when you look back on it, it's just like one big nightmare?
You're only getting caned if you misbehave. If you stay within the limits and you don't push it too far, you can enjoy school just as well as what you can while messing about.
But what are the limits?
the limits, right, just the same as what it is today. If you forget your homework, I'm not saying that you should be caned just for forgetting your homework. It should be made up on a tally system, say like detentions are.
Do you think children under 10 should be caned?
No, I think it should only be children of 11 plus that are caned.
Claudia, are you under 10?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And why do you ask that? You think it's important that the age difference?
Yeah, because I don't think you should get caned at all, but I don't think you should be caned under.
Right, thank you. More questions? Yes?
If corporal punishment was brought back into the schooling system, wouldn't it just cause more resentment between the pupils and the teachers?
No, I don't think so. I think the only resentment would be with the pupil against the teacher that he's committed the offence with. The pupil would not get a resent against the teacher if he behaved in class.
If they did get beaten, then I don't think it would make them behave more, because they'd end up just resenting the teacher and being even more badly behaved.
Not necessarily true. My father, when he was at school, was caned, yeah? And he seems to think it's done him a lot of good. And he says that if he hadn't have been caned at school, he'd have got worse and worse and worse. And the threat of caning made him stay on the straight and narrow.
Right, that's one errant dad that was put right. Let's see who else has got a point. Yourself in the front.
Do you not think that if you show respect to a child, it respects you back? You should always treat other people how you'd want to be treated yourself.
No, not at all, because I know a teacher that shows perfect respect to every child, yeah? He enjoys teaching more than he enjoys anything else. That's why he took the job, and pupils just take advantage of him.
What about younger children? You've got to show them respect, otherwise they'll never grow up with any respect
Oh,
for anyone.
definitely. That's why I said it should only be brought in from 11 plus.
Okay, let's have more questions. Yes?
Stephen Wilmot, do you think that beating would leave physical and emotional scars?
No, I don't think it would leave physical and emotional scars, because my dad has his own business, he's a respectable man in the society, and it's not made him any worse. In fact, it's made him better.
I think if you look at Stephen, stand up again. What height are you?
About 4'3".
About 4'3". Now, if somebody was to really hit this young man, Stephen, wouldn't it really be likely to leave a physical scar on him?
Well, nothing that wouldn't disappear. And the thing is, he wouldn't get the physical scar if he behaved.
Thank you, Wesley. Let's have some questions now for the opposer of the motion, for Helena. Who's got some questions there? Yes.
Simon Coulson. Have you ever been given the cane at school?
No, I go to high school and it's not acceptable.
Well, I have been given the cane at school, and I think I can safely say that it hasn't left any scars on me, either physically or mentally. So how can you say that it's bad if you haven't experienced it?
It works. Common sense can tell me that it does not work. If somebody hits you, you want to hit them back. It causes resentment. You're not going to accept it. It may work on some individuals, but the majority, it's going to have a very abusive effect on them. It's not going to work for most individuals. Would not a detention would have worked on you? Do you think it wouldn't?
I shouldn't think so, because I can't stand detention.
Well, isn't that more of a reason that you wouldn't do it again?
You're up and down like Zebedee here, but stay on your feet.
The detentions, certainly where I go to school, last from 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock. And it takes me 3/4 of an hour to get home from school. When I went in to get the cane, it lasted 20 seconds, and that was completely over. And that...
But would the detention not have been more effective than the cane?
No, I don't think so.
And yet you prefer to have the cane than detention. Does that not prove that detention is more severe?
Now, let's have more questions for Helena. Yes.
Catherine Burgess. In your video, you referred to children as weaker animals to the teachers. But was it not these weaker animals who were disrupting the class in the first place?
There are certain teachers who we all know can keep control well in a class, and they don't need to resort to any form of discipline because no disruptive behaviour appears in their classroom. Then you go to another teacher and it's a totally different story. They have no control. But if one teacher can control it, the whole teachers should be able to. It obviously shows that some teachers have differences and they should learn from the better teachers. If one teacher can, the rest can.
Right.
We've seen that detentions and all other things like punishments like that don't work. And you're saying corporal punishment doesn't work. What do you propose to do to punish these people who continually offend, if not corporal punishment?
I think that each school is individual. Some detentions do work in schools and they shouldn't be taken away if they're effective. However, not in every school. And if so, other schemes should be introduced and used and tried and tested. Corporal punishment would make the situation worse, not better.
Could you give us some examples of other things that you think would work?
You call me a do-gooder if I say explain to the people, but unless they realise what they're doing is wrong, they're going to continue to be doing it. You have to explain what they're doing is wrong and not acceptable.
Chris Pearson. Do you not think, as I do, that getting bogged down with the psychological consequences of people being caned, do you not actually think they are, in fact, hooligans who know when they're doing right and wrong, and therefore should be punished for it?
It isn't the physical pain of the cane that puts you off, it's the humiliation. You don't need that physical pain, it's not necessary. It is not an effective form of discipline.
I disagree with you there, actually. I think the pain is a put off. And I think the humiliation, if it's on its own, surely that's enough anyway.
You don't have to give the humiliation through pain. And humiliation isn't a good method. If you make that child realise what they're doing is wrong, they're not going to do it again. People don't just do things for the sake of doing it wrong.
Right, well look, thanks to everyone. Thank you to Helena. Question time is over now. The Select Committee is next. I declare the House adjourned.
Until now, both sides had made their points well, and I felt that the debate could go either way. But in the lobby, some opposers of the motion panicked. They were convinced that they were about to lose, and that the vote would be for the reinstatement of corporal punishment. Everything would hinge on the Select Committee, who were going to meet a headmaster who still used...
We've got copiers of all sizes for all kinds of enterprises, kind of big and kind of little, kind of somewhere in the middle. Take a gander at this figure, make your copies 4 times bigger. You'll have all their eyelids batting when they see you photostating. The widest range you've ever seen. Copy, copy, copy goes the cannon machine. If your company's only teething, all you need's this tiny wee thing for the...
Whatever the size of your business, if anyone can, Canon can. Hey, underneath this calm, meek, pale exterior lies the sleek, conditioned inner system of a man who knows no compromise. Yeah. Some of us around here eat a very high-fiber cereal. Okay? Just so you know.
Welcome back. The Select Committee have assembled and are ready to cross-examine the expert witnesses. Adam Grayson could be persuaded that corporal punishment would be a good thing for troublemakers, but at the moment is undecided. Samina Rashid is sceptical that the cane would be an effective deterrent, but is open to arguments for and against. Patrick, you're in favour of the motion at the moment. Why is that?
Children need something to encourage them to do well, and the last resort for punishment, because they don't always respond to the kinds that they have at school nowadays.
Right. Sarah, you're against. Yeah. Who are you most looking forward to hearing from?
I'm most looking forward to hear from Penelope Leach, the psychologist, because I'd like to hear her views and why she's against corporal punishment.
Our first witness is David Rayner, headmaster of Scaresbrook Hall School, an independent school in Lancashire. Although rarely carried out now, private schools can still use corporal punishment. Mr. Rayner uses a paddle, but he declined to bring it to the Select Committee.
David Rayner, welcome to the Select Committee. Can you tell us briefly what you think about the motion we're discussing?
I believe it's right to have corporal punishment as one of the sanctions available to a headmaster or a head teacher in order to ensure that a well-ordered society is maintained and to protect the rights of the law-abiding majority by ensuring that those who transgress the rules are properly punished.
For what circumstances do you use corporal punishment?
It would only be somebody who was, shall we say, willfully bullying, enjoying inflicting pain on somebody else, or if somebody was deliberately insolent to a member of staff.
Do you think a bully telling the bully not to hit people and then you go and hitting them, do you not think that's a bit contradictory?
I think the fair administration of corporal punishment is quite different from, shall we say, a teenage boy who, in a vindictive way, enjoys inflicting pain on another child.
Wouldn't you rather try and find out why this person is bullying, say, instead of just hitting the child for doing that?
Well, I wouldn't just hit. Obviously, I would investigate very thoroughly the circumstances in which the bullying took place and obviously talk to the person concerned.
What do you use to administer corporal punishment in your school?
I use what the Americans, I think, call a paddle, which is a long, flat piece of wood. It's not a traditional cane in that sense. And I administer it myself. I'm the only person in the school that's permitted to do that.
How do you hit them, the children?
How do I hit them?
Yes.
On the bottom. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
Why didn't you bring the paddle with you today?
I felt that so few people in my school have actually seen it, let alone experienced it. I didn't want it to be brandished in public as a symbol of terror, if you like, because it is so insignificant in the life of my school. And I didn't want it to be a central focus of attention today.
Don't you think that people should know about the different methods of punishment there can be? I mean, before you came here, I'd never heard of a paddle. I thought it was a big R or something that they used to row boats with. I think that the people in the actual People's Parliament, the MPPs, should know about this form of punishment.
Well, I've described it to you. It's just a 2 foot long, 4 inch wide piece of wood. There's nothing very special about that. You can imagine it, I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
Don't you feel guilty caning the pupil?
Do I feel guilty?
Yeah.
Not at all, no.
May I
If I feel that it is the right thing to do, see, I believe I have a God-given responsibility. I'm a Christian and I go back to the Bible principles, and I believe that God teaches us that we need to exercise fair discipline to ensure that young people grow up in the right way.
Don't you think it's true that a child who's beaten by a teacher would lose faith in the system of education and be reluctant to attend school or learn?
Well, from my experience, that's not been the case. I believe that discipline needs to be part of the overall ethos of the school, which should be one of care and love. Now, some people say, well, you cannot cane a child and then tell the child that you love them. I believe that you can.
Thank you very much for your evidence to the Select Committee, David Rayner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next before the Select Committee is Penelope Leach, child psychologist and a leading expert on discipline and punishment in the family and in schools. She has campaigned vigorously against all forms of physical punishment for children.
Penelope Leach, welcome to the Select Committee. Can you tell us briefly where you stand on this motion?
Well, I'm as much against corporal punishment as I'm in favour of good discipline. I think hitting, hurting, humiliating children and young people is barbaric, whoever does it. And it doesn't help teachers keep control of classes any more than it helps parents keep control of families.
Patrick, have you a question?
Yes, Penelope. At this time, lots of us are worried about losing our GCSE results because of children misbehaving in our classes. How would you stop them doing this?
You know, the evidence is that although it seems that beating people might teach them a lesson, punish them, make them behave themselves so you could get on with your work, if you look at the old punishment books, from the days when that did happen a lot, nobody learned anything from it. And how do we know? Because it's the same names that come up again and again in those books.
Well, how would you stop this problem then?
One of the troubles about disruptive behaviour is that it's a kind of showing off, a kind of looking for attention. If we really had young people involved in the discipline of their own schools, as we do in some, through schools councils and so on, don't you think what makes the difference is the pressure on those disruptive pupils from the other pupils? In other words, people need not to have this atmosphere that says, if you want to work, you're a teacher's pet or whatever, but a real pressure, oh, you're just boring and stupid, you disruptive. You're not being clever. Nobody admires you.
So you would change peer group pressure then? You would make it like cool to be good at school?
Yes, I think so. And also perhaps changing the feeling that says that teachers and children are on opposite sides of the fence.
Is more democracy in schools really the answer?
What more democracy in a class does is to give people the strength, I think, to support each other against bullies or antisocial children or young people, whoever they may be. It's supporting each other that makes the difference, I think.
Well, I was bullied at school, but the teachers couldn't prove that the bullies were actually getting at me at primary school. And in the end, after 3 years, I beat them up, and that seemed to work for me. How would you stop bullying in schools?
I think that teachers can only stop bullying with the help of other people in the class, because teachers cannot be everywhere. I mean, may I ask you a question, if it wouldn't be rude? You say that the teachers couldn't prove that you had been being bullied at your primary school, but weren't there other children in your class who knew it?
Most of them were the bullies.
Exactly. I think the point is...
That's not exactly your point. The point here is that trying to get the democracy of that class would not have helped one iota, because they were the bullies. The majority were the bullies.
A whole class of bullies?
Most of them, and the others wouldn't speak out against the bullies because they were being bullied themselves.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that is my point, that we can only deal with these dreadful things from the grassroots level. Now, you needed, obviously, more than just your class. Had there been a school council, had there been a bully representative, as there are in some schools.
If you take the example that Patrick was speaking about very bravely there, his own experience, there isn't really enough time, is there? I mean, there's Patrick in this situation. There's maybe not time, months, years even, to develop the kind of understanding and communication you want to get him immediately out of his problem.
I believe that since we make going to school compulsory for every child, we have an absolute obligation to ensure, at the very least, that schools are places that feel happy and respectful and safe to everybody who goes there.
Well, thanks very much for your evidence, Penelope Leach, to the Select Committee.
Thank you.
Well, let's discuss these witnesses. Patrick, you seem to warm to Penelope. You thought she was a good witness.
Yes, I think her ideas were very good. She's persuaded me, anyway. I think that corporal punishment shouldn't be reintroduced. There are other ways.
I think, as you put it yourself, it's cool to be good. Now, is that going to be easy to do?
I don't think so, not yet. Maybe in the future. As it's got to build slowly, and then it will.
Sarah, you wanted your school to have a school council. Do you think, as Penelope does, that that's the way that people will stop being disruptive?
If you have a council who you can refer to, who can show the person what is doing wrong, I think that will work.
Okay, well, let's talk a bit about David, the head teacher. Now, I wonder what did you make of the paddle question?
I think at first he said it wasn't relevant to bring in the paddle, but then afterwards he mentioned that it wasn't such a big deal. If it wasn't such a big deal, what was wrong with bringing it in to show us what it was actually like?
Are you somebody, did you come thinking that you would be supporting the motion to reintroduce corporal punishment?
Yes, I did, but I don't think so anymore.
Right, and was that because of David?
Probably.
The third witness is Nick Tokchek, who is a member of the Adult People's Parliament. Members of the Select Committee asked to talk to people who had actually experienced corporal punishment when they themselves were at school.
Nick, what was going through your mind whilst being caned?
Most of all, I think, resentment and anger. How dare someone do this to me? It's one of the reasons why I'm against it. I don't think that it's a measure that succeeds in doing what it's supposed to do. I think anybody with spirit, and I think that's the thing you get caned for most of all, having spirit. Anybody with spirit is going to object to it.
Nick, was the cane a good or bad experience?
In the long run, it was actually quite a good experience because it gave me a load of credibility with my friends. The one that I remember and most of my friends remember was getting caned for fighting in detention, which was just really good. You know, in detention you're supposed to behave. I was fighting. Not only was I fighting, but I actually got caned for it. That got me real notoriety all around school. It was great.
Nick Tokchek, thanks for your evidence to the Select Committee. Thanks.
Thank you.
The last witness is Paul Davidson, who is also a member of the Adult People's Parliament. Like the last witness, he was caned at school, but he found the experience beneficial.
How did this form of punishment benefit you?
At the time, I would have vowed it didn't benefit me. I hated it. But I always felt it was fair. So it benefited me in that The lessons where I was disciplined, I did a lot better at. I respected the teachers and got on with my work.
Do you think same rules should be applied both in state and private schools?
The schools would benefit if children who say to teachers, I'm going to do this and what can you do about it, should be able to get the sharp answer, this is what we can do.
I go to a private school where caning isn't allowed and the discipline is very good there. Now, do you think other forms of discipline can be as equally successful as caning?
Yes, I do. In fact, I think that caning should not be the first punishment that teachers or schools should resort to, but indeed should be the last resort. In fact, some children I've spoken to who have been excluded from school have actually enjoyed their time of exclusion and were quite disappointed when their so-called punishment came to an end. But if they got the cane, they would certainly feel punished.
Well, isn't that true of the cane? Because some children look up to people who've been caned and think, well, they're dead hard, you know, they can take it. And it's the same for whatever punishment you have.
You're absolutely right there. I can't argue against people being heroes because of their punishment. But between me and you, the times that I've been caned, I also put a front on. But I really didn't enjoy it whatsoever. But I do think that the net benefit for me is that it's helped me to be a much more responsible adult in life. And it's deterred me from doing a lot of things in school that I would have normally done had there not been a deterrent, which was satisfactory for me.
Paul Davidson, thank you very much for your evidence to the Select Committee.
If you're looking for a used car, let your Rover dealer look for you. He has immediate access to over 5,000 quality used Rovers. Not only will he find precisely the one you want, but he can ensure it's been checked and approved by a specialist Rover inspector before you take delivery. At Rover dealers, we care enough to take all the worry out of acquiring a used car. Well, nearly all.
For the transatlantic business class traveller comes business first. From a chauffeured limousine to Gatwick and on your arrival in the US to our state-of-the-art first-class sleeper seat, Continental Airlines gives you first-class comfort, but for a business class fare. Continental Airlines, business first.
Wouldn't it be nice if your boss was always pleased to see you? And it wasn't always sandwiches for lunch. Wouldn't it be nice if you had the time to talk to all your customers? Get to know them better, because you can call them anywhere in the country, at any time of the day, without getting hung up on the cost.
BT have abolished their highest rate for national calls. A 3-minute call now only costs 30 pence in the daytime, 20 pence in the evening, and still 10 pence at weekends.
Hello? Things are looking up already.
Pure, colour and free. Introducing Neutralia Derma Protection, the new shampoo from Laboratoire Garnier. Pure, hypoallergenic, Neutralia does not irritate even sensitive scalps. pH neutral with a hard water softener, Neutralia gently washes your hair.
My hair is shiny and radiant with health.
New Neutralia Derma Protection shampoo, formulated and controlled by Laboratoire Garnier, Paris, for the respect and natural health of your hair and scalp, even sensitive.
Well, that's shaping up nicely. We deserve a coffee. I'll get it.
Oh, thanks.
Emma, these figures. Now, problem is, the old girl keeps insisting we use blends of the highest quality beans in both Kenko ground and instant coffees. Well, I'm going to try and persuade her otherwise. Can I take it that you're behind me?
No, Mr. Lennox, but I am.
Kenko, everything we know about coffee in an instant.
This is the Swallow Hotel, Bristol, one of 35 Swallow hotels throughout Britain. Like every Swallow hotel, it has a character all of its own. And in common with most Swallow hotels, it has something that can turn even the shortest business trip into a break. A brilliant pull. Swallow Hotels, because in business, you deserve all the breaks you can get.
It was clear from the results of the Select Committee interviews that they had been most influenced by the headmaster who used the paddle. He had turned the doubters against corporal punishment. But how much influence would the Select Committee now have on the rest of the House?
I call the House to order. Reporting back from the Select Committee is Samina Rashid. Samina.
All of us agree that this motion should be rejected. The Select Committee would like you to vote on an alternative motion that corporal punishment should be abolished in all schools, private and state. 3 of us think this is right, and 1 of us is still undecided.
Right, thanks, Samina. Now, Sarah Ward, you were on the Select Committee and you've got something to add.
We have 2 alternatives to corporal punishment. Firstly, that the children should have more pupil power within schools, such as school councils. And secondly, that teachers should undergo some basic training in psychology, so they have more empathy and understanding with these children.
Right. Well, would anybody like to ask questions to either of the two girls, or in fact the 2 gentlemen who were on the Select Committee, who actually did change their mind a bit, I think, after watching the witnesses? Yeah.
How would the student council work?
The student council were saying bullying. The bully would come to the council and the council would point out what they were doing wrong. Instead of punishing them, they will show them what they were doing wrong.
Right.
Josie Rourke. I've chaired 2 school councils, both at high school and at college, and the thing that they are able to do is bring people closer to the system. You don't make effective schooling by making people into an underclass and by pushing them away from either the school or the college. You have to make them feel enfranchised, not make them feel disillusioned. That's how you do it. It's not by pushing them away with violence.
Catherine Robinson. I firmly believe that all communities and all relationships should be based on trust and cooperation and respect, and not fear or intimidation or violence. I believe that by introducing corporal punishment, you're teaching people that intimidation and violence is the way to impose your views on someone else, and that's not true. Coming back to this committee thing, if people feel like more part of the school and closer to the teachers than to each other, then they won't rebel. But even if they are doing wrong just because it is wrong, then they should be sent out of class, and so that they're the ones missing out on the education and not everyone else, because isn't that what schools are for, to educate people?
But supposing you had a school council and you had somebody who was just bullying other children, I mean, just going around beating them up. Now, how would you deal with that?
For a start, I wouldn't punish them for it, because because I do firmly believe also that bullies don't just bully for the sake of it. Bullies are trying to cope with their own insecurities and trying to be accepted into a group.
Okay, well, look, is there anyone here?
Catherine Robinson's statement that bullies shouldn't be punished at all amused the House. It didn't, however, amuse one of the YNPPs who had been bullied herself. Her speech was the strongest of all the pro-caning contributions.
I was bullied when I was at primary school, and I ended up leaving the school because it got so bad. And I feel that if the cane had been there as an ultimate deterrent for the girls that were being so vindictive and nasty towards me, the situation could have been dealt with a whole lot better than by the headmaster just talking to them and mollycoddling them and saying that, oh, they're doing it because they're unhappy. They weren't. They were doing it to make me unhappy because they were feeling vindictive. I never found out what I'd done. And I just think that if some severe punishment had been there, then it wouldn't have got as bad as it did.
Catherine, did anything happen to them?
No, I left the school. They stayed there, they continued their education, and I was the one that suffered.
Sorry, can I ask you to stand up again? Supposing something else had been done that might have been, you know, reasonably, if they'd been expelled for a while, suspended in a solitary, in a room made to study, that kind of thing, you think that would have made no difference?
No, it wouldn't, because they'd just have then retaliated on me and said that it was my fault that this had happened to them. What actually happened was that I was moved from my place in class to sit at the front of class so that they couldn't get to me. But that just made it more obvious that I was a victim of the bullying. And it should have been them that were made to suffer and not me.
You don't feel that the teachers kind of copped out there?
Yeah, the teachers completely copped out because they didn't have a method of punishing these people properly. All they could actually do was talk to them. And if they'd have had something like the cane, then they would have been able to punish them.
Right, okay, yeah.
I was bullied when I was in my early years of secondary school. And yeah, I went to the teacher, I told the teacher told the bullies off. And yeah, it did stop. But then the bullies went on and did it to somebody else. Now, I didn't go to the teacher to make them stop me from bullying. I went to the teacher to get the bullies to stop from doing it to everybody. Now, they went on and bullied somebody else. And I believe that if corporal punishment was there and that if they did get caned, then they wouldn't have done it again.
Okay.
I believe that if these bullies keep on doing it and all the punishment stops them, I don't believe that corporal punishment is the answer. I believe they should just be expelled from the school. And there are places in the country where special schools where these sort of people can be sent, and the teachers like are one-to-one with the child, and they then learn what's wrong. And then when the teachers believe that they've learnt their lesson and they're not going to bully anymore, they could then go back to their old school.
Adam, what do you think people should be expelled for? What kind of, thing would it take?
Well, bullying, consistent truancy, that sort of thing. Something that's just ruins education for other people. So.
Let's see, you at the back there.
Jamie Grant. I think if a teacher deals with a bully with a strap, I think it's them that are the bullies, pulling the bullies.
Zelda Mackay, I don't think teachers should bully. A teacher should cane because they're there to teach the children and be kind to them, and it wouldn't set a good example on the children.
Okay. With that situation that was described here, where somebody was bullying this person, how do you think the teachers should have dealt with it then if they weren't going to smack them or cane them? What do you think?
I think they should just say what they have done wrong and put them out of class until the bullies understand and until they respect the other person.
But see, the thing is,
after the last speech, the House now felt that they had exhausted the topic of bullying. They decided to move on. The Speaker asked for opinions from those YMPPs who had experienced corporal punishment themselves. Had they suffered from the experience?
I'd also like to say that when I was living abroad, I was hit with a ruler, and I don't think that's left any scars on me. I realised that this happened because I'd misbehaved, and that taught me not to do it again. I was also hit out of school when I used to go to gymnastics, and that was because I couldn't perform, and I couldn't accept that. That hurt me a lot, and I realised that it's wrong to hit someone because they can't perform well, but to show them that they're misbehaving, then I think it works.
That's fair enough. Right, where were we? Yes, yourself.
I believe that these problems could be solved at the grassroots level. I do go to the school where caning is in practice, and when I was in the junior school, the primary school, I was smacked quite often, maybe for petty offences. But when you're young, you're very impressionable, and often you're not that sure what right and wrong is. Now, if you misdemean somehow, and you get a cuff around the head or a slap on the leg, first of all, you know that you've done something wrong. Second of all, the pain, well, the pain to some extent, and the humiliation of being smacked in front of the class will make you know that that is wrong and stop you doing it again. And thus, I think corporal punishment is a corrective force. And in the senior schools, it should be used less often, I think.
Why is that?
Well, when you're older, if there is smacking in the junior schools, you should have the bases and true principles with you, and you should know that. You should know what is right and wrong. And so when you're in the senior school, you shouldn't be so... Well, first of all, you shouldn't misbehave so much, or if you do, you know you've misbehaved and you know you will get the cane for it.
Okay, so what age do you think people are when they don't really understand right and wrong and need some pain to basically tell them that they have been wrong?
I've been to the school for 10 years. When I first went, I was 5 or 4.5. And at that age, you're very impressionable. You often need to be told what is right and wrong. And the nice thing about being smacked was, you know, if there is a nice thing, yeah, was that it was quick and it was over, and you know there was no antagonism with the teacher. And I've had the same form teacher since I was 4.5.
Did you understand when you were smacked for something? Did you actually understand why you'd done something wrong, or did you just think, right, they didn't like that?
No, I understood that. I understood I had done something wrong because I was smacked for it. And so, the rest of my life, I know if I do that again, I'm doing something wrong. And if I do it, I will be risking being caned or whatever.
Forgive me for pressing you, but I mean, how do you actually understand what you've done wrong simply because someone smacks you? I mean, if somebody came up here and smacked you in the mouth now, you'd wonder what was going on, wouldn't you?
Sure, but you also, if you're hit immediately after the action you've just done, you know that that was wrong.
No, you know that somebody didn't like you doing it.
No, you know that was wrong because I trust my form teacher, and I can safely say that I am quite good friends with him, and he's taught me for 10 years.
If you trust your form teacher, why did you misbehave in the first place? You nasty person.
I may say this, but unfortunately I'm not perfect. So. Right, okay.
That speech reinforced the views of the supporters of the motion, but it didn't sway anyone who was undecided. After listening to the last speaker, some YMPPs were worried that the cane would simply encourage show-offs.
What, does anybody feel that is the case, that caning will just make people into sort of anti-heroes? Does anybody feel that here that wants to talk about it? Yes, yourself in the back.
I definitely agree that that is the case. I think that they will get more admiration because they will be seen as a kind of a hero who has survived being caned. They will be looked up to because they won't admit that it hurts. They won't admit that it has done them good, even though I don't think it will have done them good. I think that it will just gain more admiration, and so it will not have stopped them at all, because they will see caning as something that will help them to gain more admiration.
Yes, the gentleman back.
At school, I tend to be an attention seeker. And,
what an honest man you are. First one.
Lots of the time I disrupt the class and everything, and I got sent out, but I've done it more than once. It's been a lot of times, and I've never learnt from it. So I think if the cane came in, I'd be a lot wiser and I won't do it again.
But this is extraordinary because you know exactly what you're doing then. Stand up. If you want to seek attention, don't sit down, for goodness sake. So why are you doing this?
I just like seeking attention, you know.
Yeah, so what do you feel
watching.
like when you, what sort of things do you do to get attention in class?
Oh, I'll just be laughing with other people in the class, but that disrupts them, which goes around the class and then it'll go on for ages. And I think if the cane came and I'd change my mind and I won't do it again.
But at the moment, when you're disrupting people, do you think that they don't like you for that, or do they admire you as a really cool guy?
I think what a cool guy.
Right, they think you're really cool, yeah? And you think
In any debate, the key people are those who haven't made up their minds at the start, and whose vote can go either way.
Right, we're going to have to close the debate, so let's have just some of the people that haven't spoken. Yes, yourself.
I'm undecided at the moment. I can see some people's views why they want to use corporal punishment and why they don't want to use it. But how would you draw the line at, say, you brought it into schools, how would you draw the line at saying hitting someone? Say, it could be abused in schools. It's the same as bullying. A teacher could bully a child, and you couldn't go to the teacher then for help. I mean, we have about the councils, we have a student council at school, and it works, but we also have year heads who we can go to if we need extra help. So I'd like to know how people could stabilise it to make sure that it didn't get abused.
No one seemed to have an answer to that particular point, but after such a thorough debate, the speaker decided that it was time to move on and ask for the summing up speeches.
Okay, well look, we're going to move to summing up now, and just to let me remind you what the motion says. It says that corporal punishment should be brought back into state schools. I call on Helena to make a final speech against the motion. Helena.
I still agree with my main points at the beginning. We should not introduce caning back into schools. It would do more harm than good. We should start looking at other methods of controlling children, and believe me, there are. We should be able to control children in classrooms without resorting to any form of discipline. If not, there's a problem. We should look at that and solve it. Please, vote for a proper and a better way of introducing things into schools. We shouldn't go back to brutality. Let's go ahead instead of backwards.
Right, thank you.
Fellow MPPs, statistics, in my opinion, show that caning does work. There are more detentions given out to pupils than what there ever was the amount of pupils that were getting caned. And 99% of the population, by the way, I got this out of the Sunday paper, agree that caning and the birch should be brought back. And you say look at other methods. Don't you think people have already looked at other methods? Of course they have. It was outlawed in what, was it 1986?
Roughly then.
Yeah, people must have looked at it since then, right? And you say fight fire with water, yeah? But fighting fire with water is just letting them off. You're just saying, well, don't do it again. Being nice, and it's not doing anything. You say problem pupils also are the ones that cause the disruptions in class, but I know pupils that have really bad home problems and they don't bring it into school, right? So why, and you say also that they're attention seekers, so why not give them the attention they deserve? Why not give them a caning?
Right, thank you. Now we move to vote on the main motion that corporal punishment should be brought back into state schools. Would all those supporting the motion press the yes button? Those opposing it press the no. And if you don't vote within 5 seconds, you'll be deemed to have abstained. Right, I declare that the voting has now ended. There are 36 for and 41 against, so the motion has fallen. In that case, we should look at the amendment that was put forward by the Select Committee. Let me remind you of that. It was that corporal punishment should be abolished in all schools, state and private, that children should be consulted in schools through schools' councils, and that teachers should be trained in counselling skills. Once again, everyone who wants to support that motion, would you press the yes button? If you oppose it, press the no, and vote fast. Right, I declare the voting is ended. There are 31 for that Select Committee motion, 46 against, so that too falls, and I declare the House adjourned.
The House had voted against any change. The cane was not about to be brought back. How do you feel about the outcome of the vote?
I was very dismayed with the outcome, actually, because it shows by the people that are in here and the people that have been caned that caning is effective because it stopped them from doing it again.
Are you happy with the outcome of the voting?
Very happy. It's what I'd expected. People don't want to see brutality brought back to schools.
I reckon we should have won, and I'm still adamant that corporal punishment should be reintroduced.
Did you views not alter at all during the debate?
No, not at all. I came in with a set of views, and I come out with exactly the same set of views. I don't think they had a real argument at all. I think it's just people's emotions getting the better of them.
I don't want the caning to go on.
So you agree with the outcome?
Yeah, I don't think caning there should be caning.
Next week, the Adult People's Parliament will be back to debate Northern Ireland. You can find a full briefing and a chance to register your vote in tomorrow's Observer.
We go beyond the clouds after the break to peek at the Lotus Moon as Channel 4 flies to China to follow the life of the Yi community through the eyes of a child. As part of Look Who's Talking, that's next on 4.